as well as our leading keynote speaker, Kieran, today. Kieran, would you like to just quickly introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here today. My name's Kieran and I am the talent manager at Sparta Global. I graduated what feels like a long time ago now, but it's absolutely brilliant to be here today.
Fantastic. So today's session, Life After Graduation, is day 2 of the series. So today, Kieran is going to present our keynote. The talk will be about 10 to maybe 15 minutes long, and then we will move on to our panel section of the event where we'll take questions. So if you do have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section and we will manage those questions as we go through, but as we go through the panel section. So we won't be taking questions during the keynote. So today's session is recorded and we will make this available on YouTube and share the link with those of you that have registered after the session is ended. So over to you, Kieran.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It's an absolute honor and pleasure to be here today to talk to you all. It marks a very, very special day, in your journey. Not long ago, I was also in a very similar position, graduating university, and it's an opportunity to not only think about all the achievements and accomplishments that you all have gained over these years, but a really good opportunity to reflect and take stock of not just what you've accomplished, but who are you as an individual and who do you want to be? What do you value? And what do you want to get out of this new chapter in your life? So you're really at a threshold of this new beginning. And while we take that step into the world of adulthood, there's going to be a lot of responsibility for sure, but also a lot of opportunity. And in preparation for today's event, I did a bit of reflection and taking stock of my own. And I want to share some insights and hopefully some nuggets of wisdom and things that I wish that I really internalized a little bit sooner that could help you on your journey to success, whatever that might look like. So I want to start off by talking a little bit about gratitude. It's been one of those really fun and key concepts to discuss, particularly it's been projected into the wellness industry and it's been popularized in today's culture. But really, what does it mean to be grateful for things? In my line of work now, I've been really lucky to take a sort of step back and realize how privileged I was to have the opportunity to even go to university. Now knowing that not everybody does have those same opportunities in life. And I think that if we can all take a moment to be a little bit more grateful and just reflect on all the resources and wonderful opportunities we have, it really does open up a world of new opportunity. It gives you a new perspective on certain situations, even when things perhaps are not going as well. Even when they are going well, take a moment to really be grateful and think about everything that we've got in life. And this new perspective will really open up new doors and new opportunities for us. One of the other things about opportunity is uncertainty. It's definitely a constant in life. You've probably all experienced it up until this date, whether it's been exam preparation or applying for jobs, that dread of uncertainty of what's to come. You need to get comfortable with it because that is probably the most constant thing in life is change. And change is good. Change allows us to adopt another really key important concept, which is having a growth mindset. You'll be very accustomed to learning and absorbing new information throughout your degrees, but that process of learning, that skill is a lifelong skill. So I want you all to take all these wonderful attributes you've learned from faculty and staff in your institutions and keep applying that learning in new settings, whether it's your first job, a volunteering opportunity, anything that you put your time into. Really keep an open mindset and keep learning, keep growing. The next concept I wanted to touch on was regrets. We think a lot about some of the things that we wish we hadn't done. Perhaps there's been questionable moments in your time at university. I know there was definitely in mine, but even in my early career, not really being sure what I was doing or what I was aiming for, what I'm working towards, almost being a little bit on this autopilot journey. Again, take reflection time and take stock of where you are and think about not actually things that you're doing, but what we'll regret most is not taking action and not taking those opportunities. And I believe it's this idea of uncertainty that sometimes can hold us back from taking those opportunities. So, be a bit more grateful. That gratitude will really open up new opportunities for us. And don't be scared of failure. You'll regret not taking action, not taking those opportunities in the future. The final thing I wanted to touch on was confidence and professional perception. Both really, really important concepts as you now step into this world of adulthood. Everything that you do will go either towards or against that professional perception. And it's important, again, to know what values you hold, how you want to be perceived by your peers and your colleagues. A really useful thought exercise that I do from time to time is I ask my colleagues, my family, my friends to describe me in 3 words. If I'm not happy with the way they've described me, I actively try and work on those and then ask them again in about 3 months, has that changed? Is it similar? So think about how you want to be perceived into the world. How do you want to be seen as an adult? And what impact can you bring? And really have true confidence that you have unique skills that every employer would want. And it's just about having the confidence to unlock those and really demonstrate them in any setting, whether you're networking or in an interview itself or in one of these events, having that confidence to even put your hand up or ask a question. So I'll leave you with this. You've done an amazing job to get to this point. It's definitely not been easy. And I know there's been a lot of challenges, particularly for young people of today. It gets more and more competitive. But there is a whole host of opportunity out there in the world for you. And every door closed, there's always new ones that open. Thank you so much. And that is the end of the keynote. I'll pass back over to yourself, Millie.
Thanks, Karen. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. So you should all see some slides. These slides will share with you who our panelists are today. So if I could ask all the panelists to turn their cameras on and yeah, great. And I'm going to go around the panelists and ask them to introduce themselves. And I'm going to go by the screen that we have at the minute. So Aparna, can I ask you to introduce yourself first, please?
Well, thank you, Nolene. My name is Aparna Jain. I'm the head of early careers at the Tata Group and work closely with Nolene and many other universities in the UK and around the world on the Tata Global internships.
Thank you. Sean, can I ask you to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everyone. My name is Sean. I am currently on a graduate programme at Shell in Aberdeen, Scotland. I studied management and politics and international relations at Lancaster and graduated in 2021. So it's nice to be back.
Thank you. Guy, could I ask you to introduce yourself, please?
So my name's Guy. I'm what we call a national account manager here at Unilever. Been on the Unilever Future Leaders Programme, especially our grad scheme. Graduated Lancaster back in 2021. Feels like a lifetime ago now. But did my BBA management in management school. So yeah, lovely to be here.
Fantastic. Is Zane with us yet?
Yeah,
Hey,
I'm here.
great. Zane, could I get you to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Zane, and yeah, I work in the digital team here at Toyota, and I studied business back when I was in uni, so completely different streams of work. But pleased to be here today with everyone else.
Thank you. And finally, but not least, can I ask Sophie?
Yeah, of course. Hi, my name is Sophie. I work for Enterprise Mobility. I started off as a graduate on the management training scheme, and I've now worked here for around just over 7 years. And I actually studied drama and theatre studies at university. So again, completely random, not really kind of in the same industry at all. So yeah, happy to answer any questions after.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sophie. That's fantastic. So welcome everybody today, and really appreciate your time in sharing your insights, your expertise. I know some of you are alumni as well of Lancaster. So starting off with the first question, I think that is at the forefront of everyone's mind. It's a very tumultuous world out there at the minute. in terms of competition, in terms of lots of changes in lots of sectors. What would be your top tips to students right now looking to enter the graduate labour market? I'm going to pick on people today. I did say this earlier, so I am going to pick on people just so that we can move this quickly. So I'm going to start with Guy first.
Real, thank you. Yeah, I say top tip wise. Obviously, you're all university students probably listening in, and I guess how I'd probably first of all say the lecturers and tutors all said this before. It's about first of all reading around, making sure that first of all if you want to kind of go into your kind of field that you've kind of been studying, not that you have to. Obviously, the great thing about university is that it's a lovely foundation for you to kind of go do anything. But if it's your kind of existing subject field, like economics, management, business, geography, whatever, make sure you're reading around your subject. You've got a really wide macro view of the kind of world that's going on, so that when you're in front of employers, for example, you can really talk to them about the environment they're working in that you want to get into. But obviously, secondly, too, I'd say that if you don't want to go into the world that you're currently studying in, and obviously want to go into something new, for example, a bit biased, where I work at the moment for Unilever, making sure that you're kind of understanding the environment that they're in, how a business operates. But also, I say a big thing about learning about yourself as well. And obviously, I don't want to steal too much thunder from anybody else, but it's about understanding what can you get out of an opportunity, but also what can they get out of an opportunity. And what I mean by that is, if you're a really energetic and bubbly person, you're a very extrovert and you're very built on teamwork and collaboration, the kind of roles that you'll kind of want to go into is the one that you can slide really nicely into and benefit a wider team. Whereas if you're a bit more analytical, for example, and you're a bit more slightly more, you like to be in the data, you like to be really focused, pivoting yourself towards those kind of roles that actually really getting into the analysis piece too is something that you probably could really thrive into. So I say those kind of two tips are really nice kind of starting point. Thank you.
Aparna.
Sure. It's just building on what Guy just said. What I do want to say is it's a tumultuous time. I was just saying to somebody this morning that in an interview, a couple of years ago, it would be perfectly normal to be asked the question, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? At the moment, if you're asked that question, I'd be really surprised, just because most businesses don't know what the next 3 years look like, let alone the next 5. Right. So what I think it means for folks graduating at the moment is that, perhaps keeping yourself a bit more open and just really exploring new opportunities, perhaps considering, different functions and roles to what you thought you'd originally like to do would be good, just because you don't know where it would lead to. The other thing I would say is, do engage with people that are doing different things, whether you're engaging via LinkedIn, via platforms like this, or just people that come to your university to perhaps to be part of things like that. Engage with them to try and get a sense of what they see as future trends, what they see as big roles coming up, and try and just build a perspective on some of these things, because it will help you just identify what it is you want to do. And when you have the opportunity to then have those conversations, you sort of go into it with an informed point of view.
Thank you. And I agree. I mean, the average length of time a graduate stays in their first role now is around 18 months. So that kind of idea of working in an organization long term doesn't really exist anymore. And I think as well, for a lot of graduates and also for those looking to do placements and internships, there's a lot of pressure these days in terms of getting that experience, but also getting it right first time. And I don't think they need to get it right first time. I think that first role is really, to find out what they do and don't like about the world of work, so that they can make better decisions going forward. Sophie, what are your thoughts?
I agree with all that has already been said, but coming from a different angle, I think it's important to not fall into the trap of applying for too many graduate roles all at once, because that can be really difficult in understanding actually what roles you've applied for, the chances are you're not putting as much time into one application if you're applying for 10 roles at once, for example. So my advice would be to really kind of be a bit choosy to begin with and really applying for the ones that you really want to go for. Maybe keep it to 2 or 3, or, you know, do one, go through the recruitment process, understand what it's like, understand kind of how that might look to a different recruitment process, and then kind of go for the next one instead of kind of going for them all at once with one CV that might not be as relevant to one role as it is to another. And, you know, I think that's really important to kind of just pace yourself a little bit, really find the ones that really do interest you and put more time into them rather than apply for so many and put less time into them and more chance of being unsuccessful doing it that way.
I agree. It's definitely quality over quantity. I'm always saying that in sessions with students. It's you're going to get a better return on investment if you invest that time. And you know, recruiters are professionals. You know, they know their craft, and they can spot a generic or a poorly crafted application a mile off. So it is important. Sean, I'm going to go to you next, just to kind of get your take on you know, the graduate labour market, any tips or any insights that you have with your role and being, you know, an alumni as well of the management school.
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, reiterating on the points that have been mentioned, but I also think there's something about being bold. And I say that because, just to put it into context, I grew up in Manchester all my life, went to Lancaster University, which is an hour away, and then accepted a job in Aberdeen, which is in Scotland. And so I think just that realization that, you know, it might be out of your comfort zone, but I think recognizing that if there are good opportunities available, take it with both hands, and, you know, don't let location be a limiting factor. And I guess, again, I didn't do supply chain at university. That's something that I don't have a natural flair for, but again, just kind of putting myself out there to kind of push myself. So I definitely say that. In addition, I would also say for students, again, I was also a student like you guys at Lancaster, is make the most out of all the opportunities available. Even things such as internships, placements, all the volunteering activities, extracurricular, like all those things. And obviously, I get that it's about balancing it with obviously your academic studies, but I think if you can really kind of show on your CV that you've, you know, persevered with a certain network or committee or something, and, you know, you really had a passion for it and a flair for it, I think that really shows kind of your commitment, your time management, your organization, your leadership, and things like that, which I think really kind of help you stand out on your CV and application process.
Thank you. That's fantastic. I love that. Be bold. In Ireland, be bold means to be not good. But I love how be bold is here, be brave. You know, it's that's a great tip. Thank you. And Zane.
Yeah, I think I agree with the initial point about don't think about you have to get it right the first time. Like, this is actually just something for us to figure out whether we like to do something or not. So I just want to emphasize that point. I think it's such an important mindset shift when we go into job applications. The 3 sort of things that I wrote down quite quickly was and I'm in the process of recruiting someone as well. So I just thought, oh, these are the things I actually asked them about. So I actually looked for a couple of things. One, it's we can only control what we can control. So I think as someone who is applying for a job, I would have gone, okay, what are the skills and personality that I can exhibit or improve on to leave an impression on an employer? So the one that I look out for would be things like curiosity. You know, the world is changing so quickly, and a lot of people will experience a lot of cognitive dissonance very quickly, things that doesn't fit in with what our old paradigm of the world used to be. So are we able to be curious enough to find out what else is going on out there? And then it links to my second point, which is when you have that curiosity, do you have that personal drive of wanting to learn more about it? So a typical example of everyone knows AI is going on, but are you one of those who is actually curious about learning what this thing actually is, what it does? Or do you just go, I know this thing is going on, but I just leave it there and then wait for something to happen? So do we have that drive to learn more about it? The last thing that I would say, it's when I look at someone's CV, I also look at what do they do outside of their work. the extracurricular activity. What activities do you involve yourself in? Do you do any volunteering work? Are you into your sports or whatever? I think that part of your life also tells a lot about who you are as a person. So yeah, curiosity, that personal drive, the extracurricular activities of interest are the things that I look out for. And last thing is just don't give up. It's going to be hard. You're going to compare yourself to a lot of people who are also in the process of looking for a job, but just don't give up and know that if you keep going, you will get there.
Thank you. Some absolutely fantastic tips there. Just going on from that, and I liked what you said. I think a lot of our students, the focus, and this is a cultural thing as well in the UK and beyond, is to focus on their studies. And I think there's still that perception of good grades equals good jobs. So I want to get your perspective on that. And I'm going to start with Sophie first, because I know we work very closely together and Sophie's on campus and the team's on campus. So what's your perception of that, and what kind of things are you hearing from students?
I think, you know, it depends on which students we're reaching out to, because obviously we're open to all degree disciplines. So you don't need to have a business degree to do well at Enterprise, even though it's very business and management led. As I said, I've studied drama and theatre studies. Naturally, we do get a lot of business management students or accountants and finance students because of the nature of the role. So from them, you know, we're hearing all positive things. They're coming into the recruitment process. They're absolutely loving it. You know, it's right up their street in terms of what they're doing day to day and things like that. But when I'm speaking to other students or trying to kind of reach out to those other students that might not know where they want to go, or that they don't want to go into the field that they've studied, for example, they're a little bit more like, it's difficult because maybe where they saw themselves going is not where they now want to go, and they don't really know where to go from that. And that was me, to be honest, at university. By the end, I really didn't know what to do. So, you know, there is a difference. There's a lot of students out there that really align to what we have to offer, but then other students, you know, it might not be for them. So a lot of what I'm hearing is completely different depending on who the student is, where they're up to in their kind of looking for that career, or, you know, even really thinking about outside the box in terms of alternative careers and things like that as well. Sorry if that didn't answer the question.
No, it does. And also as well, just to kind of build on that, with the perception that it's all about the grades. What are your thoughts on that when you're looking at candidates?
Well, so for us, it's not about the grades, really. Like, yes, we will look at them. We ask for them on the application form, but we're really more about a well-rounded individual rather than what a piece of paper says. Obviously not completely not taking it away from a degree certification and what they've managed to achieve, because either way it's that, you know, that's fantastic. But for us, it's just about those other things that come with that. And yes, we look for, obviously it's a grad scheme that we look for, so you do have to have a grad, you know, you have to have a degree for it, and you know, the better certification that is, then brilliant. But for us, you know, we don't want to discount someone that might have a 2-2, for example. They might be the right kind of person for our company. They might have a great personality and be amazing with working with people, for example. So we really don't discount based on, you know, grades and things like that.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to Aparna now from an employer. And I know your organization being such a large global organization, Aparna, what's your stance on good grades equal good jobs? What have you seen in the market?
Well, good grades don't necessarily equal good jobs. I think there's lots of other things. And I'm going to agree with Sophie that whilst grades are a part of it, it isn't everything. It's about who you are, the experiences you bring, the values you hold. I think increasingly as job seekers and as graduates, you know, purpose is more important than it ever was. Similarly, when companies are looking to hire, they want to see people with similar values being espoused, you know, coming through, whether it's integrity, whether it's, you know, just passion, purpose, curiosity. They want to actually see that come through. So when push comes to shove, I think it is actually all of those things that, you know, trump grades. Yes, of course, the degrees are important, and, you know, by all means, you need to spend your university life just making sure that you're enjoying what you learn and you're really sort of doing well whilst doing it. But doing well could look different for different people. you know, for some people it could be grades, but for others it could be meaningful projects, and those things really make a difference.
Thank you. I really appreciate that insight. Guy, what is your take on grades and good jobs?
So at Unilever, we actually don't. I think because I look after our kind of university outreach, we don't actually have a benchmark for grade entry requirements for any of our Unilever Future Leader program or our industrial placement schemes either. So we take it really. We kind of. It's a funny thing. We have a quite a comprehensive application process at Unilever that doesn't really have any psychometric testing. It has a lot of kind of personality subject testing. And, you know, if you go down our finance grad scheme, where you go down the kind of more STEM-based subjects like engineering or supply chain on the more technical side, where you might be in a factory, for example, yes, of course, there will be some science-based kind of answers kind of focused on those specific subjects. But from our perspective, the grades are kind of, you know, only kind of tell a small bit of the story. Of course, we'll collect the information, but it kind of isn't an entry requirement for us. And the reason we kind of believe that is it's so much more as a person, we kind of want to find out about more. You've gone to university, great. That's a great starting point. Fab. You've gone through that. You've managed to go get a degree over 3, 4, 5 years. That's a really great achievement, and you've probably learned loads on that journey. Let's try and now put that to the world of work in our world and see how we can see how we can help you and how you can help us really come back from a journey perspective too. So I think that's how I would say going forward. And I think, of course, they do play a role naturally. It's not to say, you know, you can sit back and relax. And obviously, the grades don't matter, because obviously they do, and they will help you later on in life. But from kind of an absolute graduate perspective, it's something that you can kind of take off your mind and take off the way, oh, I'm not going to get a 2-1, so I can't get a grad job. Getting that out of your head, I think that will help a lot of stress sometimes when you're looking, because it is a behemoth of an application process. I remember when I was looking at graduate opportunities, I was very fortunate to have Unilever as an internship. I'd been offered a place back, but I was still looking at the variety of opportunities. I think it is very overwhelming, and to take that element out of it is really, really helpful.
Thanks, Guy. I'm going to build on that as well, and I might go back to Sophie and Aparna on this, because we've had a good question kind of come in that I think is quite poignant, which, you know, you work for, and again, also Sean and Zain, if you have anything that you want to pitch into this, but we talk about the individual and the importance of the individual and personality and qualities. How do you really ensure that individuals have the qualities, or it's about the individual, when there are thousands of applications, you know? And I think that some students, because it's so competitive, might be a little bit wary, because they're thinking, well, are they buzzwords? You know, are you really looking for that person who has these qualities, or how do you find that in thousands of applications that you receive? I'm going to go to Aparna. Yeah, Aparna, if you want to answer that one.
Yeah, sure. You know, I think great question. First, I can speak for the Tata Global Internships program. We go through every single application that we receive, you know, sort of without using an application tracker system. One of the reasons to do that is just really to, you know, somebody on the team would have seen every application. It may not be the same person looking at all, but everybody's been trained to, you know, to try and look at it in a similar fashion. The idea that every individual comes with their own experiences, their own sort of passions and what motivates them and all of that. Every person's story is different, and it's important to us to be able to read and to get a sense of who every person is. So I do feel that whilst you know, it may not work for everybody, just given the way we're sort of structured and all of that, just with the Global Internships program, it is something that I fully agree that, you know, you can't look at just buzzwords and everything else, just because with the Tata Group, our businesses are so diverse that it would be absolutely imperative for us to be able to do this. So yeah, I'm actually in full agreement.
Thank you. And Guy, what do you think in terms of, you know, filtering through those thousands? We talk about the importance of the individual. What is Unilever's approach to that?
So I think this is the kind of thing is that it's beautiful, isn't it? Because I think when from the applicant side, when you're going through the graduate application process, there seems to be a lot of stages, but it's a great opportunity for us to learn more about you, but also to learn more about us. And each stage will do a different function. So if I take our industrial placement application scheme, for example, you'll first have to write a little comprehension exercise about why you want to work for Unilever, basically, and almost immediately, as an applicant, if you've written that successfully, you've probably put yourself up quite ahead of quite a lot of people who, they just put the application in, they didn't really focus on that. So there's lots of little opportunities throughout all application processes at Unilever and obviously in other employers where if you just spend, this is probably just global advice, but if you just spend that little bit more time on each application stage, and obviously I know you'll be timed in some cases, where you answer a question a bit more thoughtfully, a bit more carefully, and a bit more considered, you'll probably get further on the process than you probably could imagine. Just because if I take an example of a video interview question, I've seen some of the Q&A answers about how do you answer to the STAR interview process, the situation, task, action, and result. Now it seems really basic and it's something that's taught across all levels. It's a really great way to get your point across. And what I'd always recommend is when you're kind of going through that process and you're thinking about, before you even got to an application stage, you'll probably have to recycle these similar STAR examples throughout multiple different graduates. It's a really good opportunity to write them down, practice them. But that's how we kind of filter them out at Unilever. I say you go through the different things we like. We have a view of what kind of person we want to have at work in our organisation, but naturally want to make that as diverse as possible from both opinion, makeup, everything. So that's kind of how we do it through our process.
Thanks, Guy. So Sophie, yeah, I mean, it builds on that, doesn't it? It's how do you get across your personality in a process that seems to a lot very impersonal? All these different stages. What's your thoughts on that?
I can obviously only talk from our process at Enterprise, and ours is a very personable recruitment process. So as Aparna was saying before, there's no kind of computer filtering people out using buzzwords or anything. We've got quite a big team. We get probably between 20 and 25,000 applications a year. So it's a lot of applications, but we do have quite a big team of people who are behind the screen. So it's not a computer, and we will read every single application. And we have an application form instead of just being able to send your CV for that reason. So we can be a bit more picky about what we want to know about you. So yeah, it will be about your degree, the subject there. It'll be about any work experience you've got or volunteering and things like that. And there will be a section there about you, your interests, your hobbies, things like that. And a lot of people will look at that part of the application and think, you don't need to know about my hobbies. You don't need to know about my interests. I'm just going to leave it blank. But actually, we've put that in there for a reason. That is the place that you get your unique selling point in, or you tell us a bit more about you and what you like to do outside of work. And actually, we see that as really, really important. But we also have we hope we have quite an inclusive application process. So we offer drop-in sessions every week. So if someone's thinking about applying, or they have applied but they don't know what to do next, or they're thinking, how can I be successful? We have it's just on Zoom every week that students can drop in. They don't have to speak, they don't have to put the camera on, but they can listen to people that work here about what it entails, like what the recruitment process is all about, what we will be asking questions on. So we're hoping we're setting people up to win anyway. And I think I always give the advice, if you can drop buzzwords into your application, I wouldn't say no. Like, if you know what we're looking for, put them in there. But then as you go throughout the recruitment process, and it is very in person, like you are having an interview one-on-one, then you do go into one of our locations and meet the team. So none of it's very computerized or anything. So we're constantly seeing the candidates and their their personalities and their authentic selves, and that's really important to us coming through our obviously in our grad schemes and things like that as well.
That's great. So it's really, don't make the assumption because it's a big organization or even a medium to small organization that it's all computer AI process driven. There are that human expert elements that are also going through those processes. And also a really good point as well, which is something that irks me massively, is people leaving a question blank on an application form. You've immediately deselected yourself, like by not taking the time to to just answer that question as best you can, or answering one-word answers as well in an application. So great. I'm going to move on to Sean now. What's your personal experience, but also working in a large organization, Sean, around that, you know, trying to get across that personality in your applications?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I actually did my placement year at Enterprise Rent a Car. So hi, Sophie. But I would definitely say, like, again, both combining what I did at my Enterprise interview and also what I did for my grad job at Shell. I think what's really, really important is showing your interest within the organization. So, for instance, everyone knows right now sustainability, the energy transition is really, really big. So if you can go on the company website and actually find a real life example of a way that the organization is serving to kind of help alleviate these issues, I think that also shows that kind of in-depth kind of, I guess, that attention to detail, but also that kind of passion and that drive. And again, I use the example of sustainability, but it doesn't have to be that. It could be gender diversity. It could be a lot of different things. But I think really kind of matching your passion, but also with the organization, I think that would really put you in good stead. And that's something that I've done. And again, giving real life examples and taking it a step further to then say, I'm really passionate about the energy transition. I see it in this organization. You have this sustainability initiative. And this was something that I also did at university when I was a part of an actor society, and we worked on, I don't know, but you see what I mean? So you're almost building this kind of 360 circle whereby you're matching your skill set and your passion with that of the organization. And then I'd also say a bit of a different point to what has been mentioned is, don't feel the need to rush into a graduate job straight away after university. So I just kind of, when I was in my final year, I just wanted to focus on my degree and my studies and get that through, and then apply for graduate jobs after. So when a lot of my peers were applying endlessly, I actually took the opportunity just to pause on that. And then when I directly finished the university, I was just working part-time. And at that point, that's when I then kind of launched into my applications and things. And I think that process of, number one, it gave me enough time to kind of focus on my studies and get the best grade that possible for me. But also it gave me time to pause and reflect and think, okay, what do I actually want to do? And I think that's maybe something that, I don't know, in today's society, we sometimes, I don't know, we don't give ourselves enough of an opportunity to just kind of pause and reflect on that. But I think it does help and it is valuable. So, yeah.
Thank you. That's really, really good to know. And Zain?
Yeah, a bit of a tricky one because I don't work directly in the people team, but I can say that this is where organizational structures may come into play. Like, for example, Toyota might seem like a global company. It is, but actually the way that we are structured, we have our local operations. So everything that when it comes to applications, we do them all in-house is what I think is happening. Now, yes, when I first applied for my job, for example, it was one interview and that's it. Back in the days, which was about 5 years ago, maybe. But now I know that for the grad program, you submit your application. There is then like video interviews where you record yourself, etc. And if you're successful, then they will invite you in for assessment center. So there are lots of hurdles, don't get me wrong. But I think the human element in there is always there. Like in our organization, for example, it's the GMs who are actually doing the assessment centers. So people who are extremely high up in the organization because they've got experience and want to make sure we are identify the right type of talent, not just for you to do your current role, but do you have the potential to grow and thrive within the organization? And I think as individuals who are applying for a job and we have an opportunity, we have one job only, and the job is to tell stories succinctly about who you are and where your potentials lie. That's all you need to focus on. How do you get that across in a very short minute or two, leave an impression? Because believe me, being able to tell who you are and your potentials in a couple of short sentences is a skill in itself. Lots of people just waffle on and can't get a point across. So actually just getting that bit right is already a plus.
Thanks for that, Zain. And I think that leads nicely into the next question, which I know Guy touched on, is a lot of organizations are using different techniques and different platforms in order to shortlist. One of those is the virtual or video interview, which is pre-recorded, so there's no person on the end of it. Outside of the STAR technique, has anyone got any top tips? I'm going to have you unmute yourself and just chime in, but have any of you any top tips for that video interview that might help some of our students in their applications? Who would like to go first?
Yeah, I'll jump in here, because I think with video interviews, and obviously in a post-pandemic world where we're using these kind of formats more and more often, with virtual interviews being quite heavily used across organizations. I'd say a lot of them, and I can't necessarily speak for ours because I can't actually recall what we use. I think we use a mixture of different technologies. But from a video interview perspective, what I can always say is the STAR technique's a really good kind of foundational point. I always think it kind of depends what the questions you're being asked on video interview too. If it's tell me about a time when questions, exactly, it's very great to be a bit more personal, really kind of give the detail, but also make sure you're linking the point to the end. But then if it's a slightly more abstract question where it's asking what would you do in a work environment, for example, too, think slightly outside the box, but also I'd make sure you take your time. Most of these assessment processes will give you the time, and often it's a bit of an indication. If they say they give you 180 seconds, for example, to prepare before you speak, it's probably a good idea to start jotting some examples down and thoughts in your head so you can structure it roughly before you kind of go into it. Whereas if it's a slightly shorter time frame, I think it probably gives, not necessarily always, but it gives you a bit of an indication that the company is slightly wanting a short, snappy point rather than something that's slightly more thought out and developed than they might be expecting. So I think it's all a bit situational, but again, it's a really good example to practice these before. Practice in the mirror. Again, what I'd always recommend is that if you kind of come up with a few examples about yourself, practice in the mirror. It sounds a bit cheesy, but it's what I do for presentations and meetings, and really helps me speak confidently and obviously in front of these kind of situations, but obviously meetings too. So really practice them before, and I think you'll be on your way to a winner.
Thank you, Guy.
Just on the point of practicing, I also think practice in time conditions is also really valuable. So again, film yourself on your phone or something, and just have your kind of 5-minute timeline so that you can match it with the time given.
Who else would like to add to that? Any other insights? Aparna?
Sure. I think Guy is absolutely right. There's just no substitute for being able to practice and just make sure that you're coming across in a way that you'd like to. I want to just add, and this may sound really basic, but I just want to add some hygiene stuff. Sometimes on video interviews, you'll see people on mobile phones. What it does is, whilst you're perfectly visible, audible, and all of that, it doesn't give you the opportunity to sort of be in frame and focus. It may sound like a really, really pedantic point, but it makes such a big difference because you don't have, that's your opportunity to just sort of visually have somebody's attention. And it may be something that, you're not able to do. So before any video interview, please try and make sure you do it on like your laptop, desktop, or, perhaps even your iPad, but just be cognizant that it doesn't, actually, you don't lose half the screen to being on a phone. Sorry, I if that sounded very random.
No, not at all. I think it's quite, because I've seen quite a few video interviews recently where students have attended in a hoodie, and I think that although it's pre-recorded and there's no person at the end of it, there is going to be a person reviewing it. So you still, I think the basics are still there, aren't they? You still need to make the effort. You still need to show willing and show motivation. And I think that comes with as well when you're meeting an employer on campus, whether it's an event, dress to impress. It's that kind of, don't turn up to an employer event in shorts and t-shirt. It's just simple things. I'm not saying you have to wear a suit to an employer event, but just dress smart. And I think there's a lot to be said about, just making that little bit of effort and also being aware of your background. I think background is key.
Yeah. Sorry. No, I just wanted to also add that you actually have to work much harder to engage on a video interview than you do in person. So whilst it's really convenient, I know that ours, for example, is an audio one. It gives you the opportunity to re-record as well. But you've got to work much harder because you just want to make sure that, you know, you're engaging that much more. So
and your tone and yeah, because I think with a video interview, when you don't have somebody to feed off, you can very much, it's easy to go into a monotone and kind of just sound like you're reading rather than really, you know, getting across your energy and your passion and your motivation. Thank you. I'm going to move on to the next question. If anybody would like to contribute to that last question before we move on. No? Okay. So I think that leads on nicely to AI in careers. So a question I'm being asked very frequently at the minute, and I'm a big fan of AI, but I think there's ways and means to use it responsibly. Is it okay to get AI to write my CV? Is it okay to get AI to write my cover letter? Would they know? Would a recruiter know that that's what I've done? Would an employer know? Would it matter? And obviously my answer is yes, and please don't do that, because it really doesn't get across who you are. It'd be great to get your opinions on this and how you feel AI is impacting applications in terms of careers, what you're hearing on the grapevine from graduates. And I'm going to start with Sean first, if that's okay, just to kind of get your take on what, because I know that you've attended a few events with graduates recently. What's your take on AI in careers?
So honestly speaking, I don't think it was really a big thing when when I was kind of applying. It wasn't really something I considered. However, I guess my only response to that would be, okay, fine, maybe it can articulate and write something very, very eloquently. But then the reality is, if you then get if you then proceed to an interview and then you can't match up to that, you've almost you've sold yourself short, and then you've sold a dream to the organization. So I think rather than, again, trying to kind of be something or present yourself in a way that you're actually not, just be so authentic. And I think that's really what's kind of helped me. The key thing I always say is it's kind of like how you present yourself in the interview, like your authenticity and just being able to kind of communicate. So I mean, yeah, I wouldn't advise students to do that personally, and it wasn't something I did or ever think I would do, to be honest. Yeah.
Thank you. And I agree, you know, getting across your authentic self is really important. And I can see that it can help a lot of students. It can be a good assist, but I think relying on it could be questionable. I'm going to go on to Zane and just get, Zane, your opinion on this and what you've seen. Because I know you're recruiting. I know you're not in HR, but you're recruiting at the minute. What are you seeing at the minute?
Yeah, I think I personally definitely wouldn't use AI to write up my CV as well. I think that's, or even my personal statement or whatever. And to be honest, because it's a human reviewing it, and AI could do a really good job of human language, that I'll be honest, if you put two CVs in front of me, I might even struggle to differentiate one or the other. I think that is the reality, because I'm not a machine and I'm definitely not a linguistic expert. So no, I don't think I can differentiate that. But I think what is important though is, and I just wrote this down when I was thinking about the question, it's with me as a non-English native speaker, I was an international student to start with. I can see how some of them may use that to make certain language flow better, etc. In which case, if it acts as a productivity tool, that's fine. But if you're using that to copy and paste the whole job description, put it into the tool and asking you to spit out a CV and do that, I think you need to question your own intention. And I will challenge everyone to think about that, because what makes you think you can outsmart the recruiter in this whole process. I think it starts off the wrong intention. And quite frankly, this is also a test of whether you are willing to go through and put in the hard work and effort to get what you really want, or are you just trying to get there in the shortcut way? So I think the honest answer for me is I can't tell whether you'll be able to submit your CV by using an AI or whatever. I can't tell, but I would really question at your own personal level, what makes you think this is the right thing to do and not go through the hard way to get what you want. So yeah, I would say that probably is more of a personal ethic question.
No, I agree. Integrity is very important, and I think it does bring into. I can see it as a very good aid, as you said. It can give you a nice basis, but really, you've got to be, as Sean said, your authentic self. Would anyone else like to add their thoughts on this?
I don't mind jumping in here.
Thank you.
I definitely would agree with everything. It's definitely a question of someone's ethics and integrity. Employers, I think, generally speaking, along with technical competency, we are looking for hardworking, intellectually curious, honest people, all the things we've touched on from all the panelists today. And doing something like that, it just goes against all those values. I definitely would say, to play devil's advocate, there is a lot of great functionality with AI. It's only going to get bigger. And I think circle back to Guy's point, again, showing that intellectual curiosity and trying it out, playing with it, seeing how it can help elevate what you already can do, but how it can inspire you to want to learn other things. I think it's a great means to do that. Lots of things I don't know about technology, and I'm a tech recruiter, just for context, but I'm not a software developer by any means. So I can learn a lot in a short amount of time by getting things like ChatGPT to explain what a ETL pipeline is to someone like me in a novice way, and that's brilliant. But like we said, getting it to actually do the tasks or work for you is where you will fall short. So definitely don't fool yourself by trying to use AI to do the hard work, because you won't get any rewards from doing that. It's probably only going to set you back. One other final thing, if you are interviewing for technical roles that require coding exercises or similar things like that, we have in the industry seen quite a big rise in people copying and pasting from sort of coding platforms into ChatGPT and trying to paste the answers back. The platforms we use are getting better and better as well. So eventually you won't be able to do that. So it's better, again, you don't fool yourself. You really try doing these coding exercises honestly and doing them yourself, because you'll only set yourself up to fail in the long run. So yeah, definitely use it for the good sort of things like elevating what you already know and the work you can do, but don't get it to do things for you.
Thanks, Kieran. And that's, so important, I think, from, again, being your authentic self, but knowing that at some point you might be rumbled. So if you are pitching yourself as somebody that you're not, the potential to be found out, and then that has bigger implications on your career, on your future, on your employment. So it's, a lot of employers, especially at graduate level, are very supportive in terms of training. If they think you're the right person for the role, a lot of graduate employers do offer training. So I think it's about, offering up what you can do. So just to kind of, I think, follow that on with some, we have a lot of international students, a lot of students from the EU as well, who are looking for careers in the UK. And we know that at the moment it is very competitive, and there are barriers to employability. Any hints and tips for our international student community or EU student community, and also those, our diverse student communities, on navigating those barriers in the recruitment process? And Kieran, I'm going to start with you, because I found that your keynote was very inspirational when you talked about confidence, and I know that a lot of our students' confidence does get knocked quite a bit, when they they have a higher rejection rate than, say, a UK student. So your insights would be appreciated on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a real shame that, not every business is in a position to, offer sponsorship, but not every student requires it. So it is a really difficult barrier. What I would say, if you are in that situation where you've had the feedback that it's not something that the business can consider, definitely take any feedback that you can and keep moving forwards. I think what we can do as human beings is just dwell on the past and dwell on what the challenge is. But if you can't do anything to make a difference, and it's out of your control, just again, stay positive and focus on what is in your control, and you can keep moving forward in that way. And I'd also say, if you're unsure about your eligibility, do still apply and reach out to businesses. They will mostly allow people to submit an application, and they normally will get back to you and confirm if you are eligible. So do make sure you reach out if you are unsure. But what I would say is don't focus on it too much if it is out of your control. And yeah, and stay confident, because it doesn't reflect on your ability. It's actually just something that you can't help. So you've definitely still got a lot to offer if you're in that position.
Thanks, Kieran. Would anyone else like to add to that?
Can I? I'd love to,
Zane,
just
you can.
because I am an international student myself, and I will be honest, when I did it, it was really, really tough. And at that time, when you graduate, it's either you get a job now or you go home, because there isn't a bridge period where you get that student or graduate visa. I think there's now like a 2-year period for you to stay and have a look. So I would say, from someone who has gone through that, English or just getting that nailed is critical. I personally really believe that is the case, because that gives an impression on how well you are from a language front. But also, most importantly, it's how do you use words to articulate what's inside your head. And I can't tell you, when I first went to Newcastle for my university, not knowing how to speak a word of English, and it was difficult, because they probably speak a different language over there. But that was it. I had to go through that. And actually, when I first started my placement job, there were people who were just shouting at me at the phone saying, "I don't understand what you're saying." And the confidence is constantly being challenged. But I think the learning that and watching films and dramas and pick out what you can from those places. And actually, one thing I do find really useful back in university is learning how to write a good piece of essay. It's absolutely critical. That helps form the foundation of how to form an opinion, form an answer. So I would say those things that they really teach at university in terms of writing stuff, making our arguments, are actually very useful in the work environment. So English, articulation, and just make sure you're doing your absolute best in everything, because it is very competitive. So you need to make sure your skills, experience, personalities are also up to scratch. But if you can't get that out of your head, then that's something to think about. So I just want to share that, because just because you're international doesn't give you an excuse to not work harder.
Yeah, no, I agree. And there are barriers for our international student community. I've worked with international students for 15 years, so I understand that the barriers are there. But you're right, English language, it's a great achievement, to be able to speak another language. And I think that the confidence in that will build the more you use it. And it's so easy to find, similar individuals from similar cultures and kind of go back into your own language when you're at university, because some of our, diverse communities are quite large. So it's about, getting out of, I think you said it earlier, Sean, getting out of the comfort zone and really pushing yourself, to have those conversations in English, or even just asking your friends, can we have this conversation in English? I just want to practice a bit more. And also understand that a lot of people, and I know you've had bad experiences as well, Zane, but most people are very patient and willing to work with you and help you with your language, if that's something that you make clear from the start that you want help with. But as well, it is about, quality over quantity. So it's taking the time, engaging with your career service, get the support that you need to help understand what are those barriers and how best to navigate those barriers, because we work with employers every day. So we get we have the latest information and can help our students to understand that. And I think that comes on to another question around neurodiversity as well. And we're seeing a lot of employers engaging with our neurodiverse communities, understanding how to, I suppose, tailor the recruitment process so it is inclusive. Kieran, what's your experience of recruitment processes that are more inclusive now?
They're brilliant, actually, and I'd have to say that I've seen more and more of my peers and people within the industry adopting fantastic new initiatives to really make their processes much more inclusive. And every year, even here at Sparta, when I think we've almost done it all, there's something else that we can do, and then that's brilliant. And whether it's having extra time versions of your online assessments, for example, which we've got, great. Providing candidates different modes of being able to do their interview, or different mediums of giving them collateral or resources, whether that's more auditory or more visual, and making sure the assessments that we do have or anything that's completed online is something that's accessible for all as well. So there's lots of different ways that we can do that as businesses. And I think technology, again, to touch on things like AI, those are the sorts of tools that are empowering businesses to do those sorts of things. And tech's a great industry because it's a big topic at the moment in the landscape. Businesses are keen to be innovative with tech to help other businesses be more inclusive with their hiring processes, because all businesses know that's good. That is good for their business, having diverse teams. So I'd really encourage anyone who feels like they fall within that category to not be afraid of it and know that businesses really embrace that. And we want to learn from you just as much as we want to learn from each other. And the more upfront and honest someone can be at the start of their recruitment process, if you feel comfortable, I definitely would encourage you to do so. Tell your recruiters, because the more we know, the more we can help you and provide you with those alternative options, tests, ways to do interviews, etc. So it's definitely nothing to shy away from. So I'd encourage you all to talk about it openly with your recruiters.
Thank you. Sophie, what's your experience of this in the recruitment process?
So I think where our barrier would fall for students with neurodiversity or anything like that would be our website, and actually navigating the website. So we've identified that, and we're actually having a rebuild of our website, which is coming, I think, February 2024. So that's currently in the works with neurodiversity in mind, and how people access information and things like that. We also do give the option of doing on-campus interviews for final year students. So that's kind of a barrier that we're seeing, like a lot of people that might not want to do. Yeah, I mean, ours isn't a pre-recorded video, as we mentioned before. It is but it's on a screen because it's on Microsoft Teams, and you would be speaking to one-on-one, which is good. Yeah. But a lot of people see that as a barrier, that actually they want to be able to meet someone in person, and that they feel like they would do better in that kind of environment. So we make sure that we have that on offer to all of the universities that we partner with as well, a few times a year, where we say, if you've got any students that would prefer an on-campus interview, we'll come in and we'll see them instead of have them access a link or something like that. And same for social mobility as well. I know you didn't ask about that, but again, not everyone has a laptop. If they don't have a laptop, how do they attend an interview? So we've kind of figured out a way of maybe doing a little bit of difference in our recruitment process. But also, just as Kieran said, it's about that upfront and honesty. And if you're feeling comfortable enough with the person you're speaking to let us know of anything, any barriers that you have, the earlier you can tell us that, the better. Like, we have it on the application form where it literally says, do you need assistance with anything? Or I don't know exactly how it's worded, but if you fill that in, you're giving us a good idea then, and we can say, right, what adjustments do you need? Like, tell us and we'll do them, like reasonable adjustments, but we will help you with anything like that. And we've hired people that were completely deaf, and they've needed us to send equipment to them in order to be able to do things, and we've done that, but we need to know about it. We don't want them people to be unsuccessful because we don't know about a barrier that they might be facing.
And I think that's important as well, especially those on the neurodiversity journey, because I do know that the waiting lists for diagnosis are 5 years in some cases. So I know a lot of employers are recognizing self-diagnosed or those in the process and on the journey. So I think it's about taking that confident step in, having that honest conversation with an employer to get that support, because I think that fear of hiding who we are needs to come to an end in order for you to be able to be your best self, but also work in organizations that reflect those values. You know, you want to work in organizations that are inclusive and reflect the values where they value the individual for who they are. Guy, I'm going to come to you now as well, what your thoughts and Unilever's approach to this is.
Yeah, so the diversity inclusion is really kind of at the heart of everything we do as kind of an organisation, but also it's very much front and centre within our application process. So when you apply for any Unilever job, whether that be direct entry, a graduate or industrial placement opportunity, you'll always be asked to say, you know, what kind of other additional, do you need any additional requirements? What can we do to help you? And we'll reach out specifically to kind of ask, because I think obviously what's really important here is that it's not everything's obviously the same. There's so many different accountabilities, so many different kind of basically moderation needs to be taken into account for each different individual, because they've got different kind of conditions, obviously different requirements. So we'll take that into account with everything we do. But yeah, I think it's so important, and I think what you'll find is once it's kind of flag to our central HR team, our people team, they'll take it from there and obviously make sure that it's all kind of those kind of accommodations are made throughout. But yeah, again, you know, not just obviously through the application process, but again, I think we're really proud that we really kind of value obviously that kind of inclusion perspective as well throughout the organisation, from making accommodations at work and obviously the various kind of different things that we could do to make obviously work accommodations. Obviously that occupational health piece comes in to play there too. So, you know, well-being, obviously you can loop it into that too. It's a very comprehensive view that we take of employee kind of wellness, I guess, as well throughout an application process and to our staff, you know, if you get through.
And I think that leads on to questions around companies being very aware of the UK hiring processes around discrimination, whether it's gender, ethnicity. And I think a lot of companies are, every day is a school day, but I think a lot of companies are very much getting better at that and striding, especially with the rise of you know, knowledge around neurodiversity, disability, even international, and the UK legislation on that. A lot of our employers are doing much better in terms of adhering to that. Are you seeing a real difference? I'm really addressing this to Kieran, Sophie, and Guy, in the industry around that, you know, hiring practices and that being kind of influential in the early careers recruitment space?
I'll go. Yeah, so I think in the time that I've been in this role where I am actively recruiting for a role, we've always had, you know, things in place where we're making sure we're not being discriminating or against anyone. We don't ask people's age, we don't ask for the gender or anything like that. Yes, we do have a form that's optional to fill in, so we can kind of track who's applying and things like that, and what work we need to do to get, you know, a more diverse talent pool applying to our roles. But as well, our team all go through multiple times a year unconscious bias training. So we just make sure, and we use an external company for that as well. So, you know, experts in the field that will come in and just talk to us about what unconscious bias is, you know, how we can combat that in our workplace, making sure that, you know, that we're aware of any unconscious biases that we might have, and being able to kind of really move away from that and make sure that we are giving everyone equal opportunity as well.
Thank you. Kieran, Guy?
Yeah, I'll quickly just echo what Sophie said. I think that the training that businesses now have is brilliant. There are so many great companies out there that are supporting multiple businesses with getting their teams up to speed with diversity and inclusion, and a lot of businesses have been doing it really well, but we'll also continue to improve. Sparta also do very similar things, getting external people to come in and train, and we do a lot of work internally as well to make sure we're adhering to those things. And when you're doing your research, guys, around graduate roles, do make sure you look at your employers' awards and certifications and accreditations they've got. A lot of employers have great sort of markers of inclusivity and diversity, and whether it's, you know, like B Corp status, which Sparta have, or having a training award or whatever it might be. So definitely find ways to engage with your employers about how they've been able to really make an impact in that market, and you might actually be surprised at how much they're doing. But yes, definitely training is a key thing, I think, for teams. And just as talent managers, making sure that, one thing I like to do is every year, at least, probably more than that, look through all the processes and have a bit of a refresh, think about what could be improved and where we could reduce bias in different areas. As I said, there's all, like you said as well, every day is a school day, so nothing's going to be perfect. But every time I go back and look at the processes, I do find something else we can do, and that's a great thing. So yeah, don't sort of worry. Again, just to circle back to what I said before, businesses are very proactive in the space at the moment, and we continually want to learn from candidates.
Thanks, Kieran. Guy, have you anything else you would like to add to that?
I think I just echo those kind of really key points that have kind of been raised. I think I'd probably more address the types of the applicants, obviously students on the call. The biggest thing I would say is, if you need support throughout any application process, please do reach out directly to the employer. Even a small, quick email to them saying, "Hey, look, I feel I need some help here. I need support here." It will go a long way, because often then they will, if they don't have the processes in place already, it will flag to them, or they can flag you specifically and take those additional steps to make sure that you get the fair and equitable treatment throughout the application process that you kind of deserve. So always kind of reach out, obviously read about online more about the information process for individual employers, obviously same with ours, all kind of on our website, for example, but for Unilever. But again, I think wider industry too, it's one of these things that's becoming more and more well known. Every day is a school day, as Kieran said already, but I think where we do a lot of research in the space and trying to improve our systems, our processes, to make sure everything is as diverse and equitable as possible, and to make sure that everybody has a very fair and a good opportunity to apply for a job with us.
Thank you. And I'm just going to say, Sean or Zane, if you have anything that you would like to add to that, now's your chance before I move on to the next question. Because I'm conscious we only have about 15 minutes left. That's gone very, very quick. Thank you for all of those answers. It's helpful, I think, and I think a lot of organizations are moving in that way to be more aware, to be more inclusive, to value diversity, not just British diversity. Where a lot of employers are making great strides in that area. And for those of you who are working with our students and who are I suppose just thinking about what our students are asking for around experience. So those of you who are working with students and you see them at recruitment events on campus, and we talk about experience, and experience matters, students do get bogged down in this. What do you mean by experience, and what do you mean by how that gives me a competitive edge? Is it supposed to be relevant? Am I supposed to give, how am I supposed to position it, essentially? So the questions that we've had, and I'm kind of rolling them into one, is how important is a placement year? Is it important? How, if everybody has something extracurricular, is it making me more competitive? So what do we mean by engaging in extracurricular activities in terms of competitiveness? And how relevant should that experience be? So first of all, because I know you've done a year in industry, Sean, I'm going to go to you. How do you feel the year in industry helped you in your career path?
I think it helped tremendously. I think because I had a solid experience, I had a solid time that I'd worked in a working environment, and I had something that I could kind of leverage and kind of talk about. I've had my experience here, and I'm hoping to kind of further develop it. I think if you have the opportunity to do a placement year, I would wholeheartedly do it. And I would also say, again, internships, obviously there tends to be a cutoff point from when you can actually do internships. So it tends to be your duration of university, or the first to second year of university and things like that. So again, obviously you've got the summer holidays, use that time, really use it. Because I think there's so many times where that can be the gateway for you getting another job. You can get somewhere else where maybe if you and another candidate are kind of on the same level and they're trying to decide, more time it's going to be with someone that, they've got this kind of experience and things like that. So I'd definitely say that, yeah, get involved as much as possible. And I think going back to your point about what is the right experience and things, that was something that I always kind of navigated. And I personally don't think there is this definition of like the perfect experience. I think it's how you form it. So for instance, I was really interested in politics. I studied politics and international relations. But yeah, I'm working for an oil and gas company, and I did a placement year at a car rental company. So even in that respect, I don't think it's about using your experience and how that can then be implemented and applied. So I would say don't be too fixated on, oh, it doesn't directly link, but think about the skills that you're taking from that. I think that whole point about transferable skills is really, really important because, again, I do supply chain right now as a role, but I was never recruited purely on the basis of have you got supply chain knowledge. It was how have you got these transferable skills that you can apply it. So yeah.
Thank you, Sean. And Zain, how did your experiences help you in your applications?
Yeah, well, I remember when I first started, I would say placement is definitely very helpful in that sense because you do get that real life 1 year or some universities do 2 years of industrial experience. And I've never worked in an official office environment before, and that was my first ever opportunity. So I would say that is really helpful from a career perspective. But I remember when I was applying for that particular role in a placement opportunity, I didn't have any experience whatsoever working in a office environment, let alone actually working in the UK was really lacking for me. But I remember in the CV, I pop in something like, yeah, this is what I do in my extracurricular activities. You help throw up events and you have to liaise with suppliers to work out locations, etc. Those very small things and tasks that I do forms part of the experience. And also, I think universities allow students to have like work experience as well. I remember I was working at the students' union. So those things also forms part of the work experience. And as part of my personal hobby, I also said I also do part-time magician performance in restaurants. And my manager actually asked me about that. She didn't ask me about the students' union, such as says, oh, tell me about this. This looks interesting. So I think don't underplay any experience you have, whether it's professionally or they may not seem relevant to start with, because actually those things are just talking points for them to find out a bit more about who you are as a person and whether you would be a good fit for both sides. So yeah, wouldn't worry too much about that at all. Just make sure you really bring out what you have learned throughout those experiences and make sure you can share that. And yeah, I think, yeah, wouldn't get too bogged down about experience as you first mentioned.
Thanks, Zain. And I think that, you're right in the sense that employers are, it's good talking points for you. Experience that you've gained helps you to understand what you do and you don't like, but also helps you to be able to give examples and articulate, communicate to an employer, that you managed an event or that you were a magician I'd love to talk about that as well. Those kinds of things are interesting, aren't they? And also people hire people they like. So getting across your personality and your hobbies is important because it says a lot about who you are. It says a lot about your values. It says a lot about, your personality. You spend more time in the office with people you work with than your own family. So even online, you might be working from home, but you're still online with colleagues all day. So I think it's really important to, give yourself the opportunity to learn who you are in the world of work. As well as gaining, it's not all about the skills and experiences, but I think it's also about helping you to understand who you are as well and gaining that knowledge. I'm going to move on to Sophie. Sophie, what's your advice to students? Because we're wrapping up now, but what's your advice to students the one thing that they can do between now and graduation to really give themselves an edge?
One thing.
One thing.
I don't know. I mean, going off the back of that work experience question, for us, yeah, we do look for elements of work experience, but that could look like a lot of different things. It could be a part-time job in a coffee shop. It could be volunteering at a local charity or, charity shop or something. There's loads and loads of ways that experience can look on an application form. So I think the best thing to do would be to, first figure out what you want to do. and what jobs you're wanting to apply for, and then think about that experience and how that looks. But I think, Sean, you said it perfectly, like, use whatever experience you do have and just make it transferable. So find the links, what the company's looking for, and make sure it's transferable. So that's what I would say, and really kind of building up that CV and what you've done. You know, if you've not got the opportunity to work part-time, can you be a student representative? Can you do something on campus? Can you, these kinds of things as well, because it's all good. And then you mentioned kind of the extracurricular, if you've been in a sports team, fab, because that shows me that you can work in a team, that you've probably got leadership skills, that you are probably competitive. So actually just being a member of a sports team in your extracurricular, it's not work experience, but it's showing me a lot of those competencies that we look for. So yeah, I don't know if that was definitely not one, but there you go.
No, that's really good. And I think that there was a question there as well earlier that somebody raised around, specifically for you, Sophie, how you ended up in a businessy environment with a non-businessy degree. How did you articulate that? And I think that goes back to the transferable
it
skills.
Is 100% transferable skills. So yeah, I didn't know anything about a business model, which a lot of business management students might know, but actually I'd worked part-time throughout my whole degree and before that as well at sixth form, because I had to. Like, I'm from a very working class background, I needed to work part-time. So I'd built loads and loads of transferable skills in my degree as well. I could talk to people, I could stand in front of a room without shaking. I'd built in confidence skills and things like that. I learned, a lot about my written, how I articulate myself both verbally and non-verbally. So all of these skills that I learned, yes, it was about a random subject that had nothing to do with, an automotive company, but, I was the right kind of person. And actually I had worked in a hospitality environment with people a lot, and I'd actually worked myself up to a supervisor. So I used all of that and made it relevant.
Thank you, Sophie. That's fantastic. Right. Guy, I'm going to ask you for your one tip now, or your one insight into giving, graduates that idea, or those going on internships or placements.
It kind of gives it, actually, you go back to, well, obviously you're all at Lancaster University, one of the best universities in the world, the best university in the world, in my opinion. But again, I think you've got a really good opportunity to kind of really leverage what you've got here. And I'd say that's a really good tip, because it's exactly why I'm even at Unilever, I'm really honest. The reason I found out about Unilever was through the wonderful careers department. So that's how I went on my internship. They prepped me for my grad scheme and helped me throughout the process. So you've got wonderful, wonderful things at Lancaster, whether that be going back to this whole point about what is extracurricular activities, what is everything else. What gives you the edge is not necessarily about the kind of examples you're going to be learning about or experiencing. It's about character building almost as well, and whether that be going to the college ACRs, student union stuff with the Lancaster SVU, anything to do with the kind of student ambassadorships or sports teams, for example, anything that you can do to kind of build your own personal development almost. So what you were, and I take it at absolute personal level, what I was like before university and what I came out after university, because that's the mirror I see him as. This is the mirror of the guy who young, 19-year-old who went to university and came back, 21-year-old, almost fully developed, really completely different person. And how I articulate myself now in interviews and appearances in a professional environment was very much driven by my personal development at university. So I really, really would say take every opportunity you've got at university to develop yourself, meet new people, try those different, try and be yourself almost as well. Try it out at the university. It's a really good opportunity to try and develop those characteristical traits that you will use in interviews. And it'll be so helpful when you kind of get through them. And once you're on a grad scheme, for example, or a grad job, or whatever you do post university, it'll help you in such a long way.
Thanks, Guy. I appreciate that. Sean, what's your top tip?
Sorry, I was trying to undo my mute. I think my top tip is, again, just again, be bold and just give it your best shot. I think the realization is, it's not going to be easy, but I think realizing that your career is a journey and not a destination is so much better. So again, just take each step at a time. If you get rejections, it's redirection, and just keep going and keep going, and you will eventually land with the right job.
Thank you, Sean. Zane?
Yeah, I think we touched on a lot of the tactical stuff. I would say make the most out of the career service that the university has to offer. There are lots and lots of stuff in there, and practice rounds and rounds of assessments, etc. There's resources available at your fingertips, literally, to do that. So yeah, definitely make the most out of it in your final year. And the other thing that I just want to emphasize on, which I think doesn't sometimes get talked about often, it's it's easy for us to focus on all the tactics to make it work, but actually there's also the mindset bit. And I shared this with another forum that I attended recently, which is a quote I read from a book called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. And then he said, treat every challenge as an opportunity to practice a human virtue or value. So if it doesn't work this time around, that's fine. It's a way of us practicing patience. If it doesn't work the next time, that's fine. It's a way of practicing how to put in a real effort to make something work. So I would say, don't get knocked down on your confidence. It's all part of a journey, as I think Sean mentioned just now. So just keep going, and you'll always get something out of it if you're putting the hard work. So yeah.
Great, thank you. And finally, Kieran, I have gone to everybody, haven't I? I know Aparna's had to leave. Kieran?
Yeah, I mean, I'm struggling to follow that. I think everything that's been said is just so on point. And if I can add anything to it, that it would be just make sure that you use every opportunity as a chance to stand out, whether that's the application form, or you get a out of the blue call from your recruiter, or you get a message on LinkedIn. Make sure that you're being proactive and responding back to people as quickly as you can, showing that passion, that enthusiasm, and retaining your confidence when it's a no, because there'll be plenty of no's. And honestly, they'll continue for the rest of your career. You know, it's not just now, it'll continue to happen. So brush it off and keep going. And when you do get a bite on your CV or your application, be first to market to that recruiter. You know, be present, be proactive, ask the right questions, and yeah, believe in yourself, because there's definitely a place out there for you to make a massive impact in this world.
Thank you so much, Kieran. Thank you, everybody. Those are great recommendations and insights. And just to echo that, because I know we have lots of students here from different institutions as well, just engage with your career service. They're experts in what they do. They can get you in front of employers. They have employers on campus. You can get appointments and help with CVs and applications. And even if it's for further education, we're here to help. So do engage with your career service. Don't kind of flounder or think that you can't ask any question. We're open to any question as career services. And also as well on the feedback, it is, rejection can be hard. It can be disappointing. Don't make assumptions on what on the rejection. Ask for feedback. And if you can get it, great. If you can't, bring your application to your career service and get them to look at. It could be small changes that make a big difference. So yes, so thank you everybody for your insights today. Thank you to our keynote, Kieran. Thank you to our panel, Aparna, Sean, Guy, Zane, and Sophie. I think we've learned a lot today. We've had some great, perspectives from different sectors, a real spread of sectors as well, both in the UK and globally. So really, really appreciate you all attending today. And thank you to our audience for attending. And we have another Life After Graduation event tomorrow. And let me just change this. I'm being instructed. It's on the next slide with more details. So if you do want to attend tomorrow's event, it will be delivered in Mandarin. So it's going to be facilitated by Lin, who's the partner and head of Asia at Gerald Edelman, who's our partner for these events. So if you do want to attend, please do sign up tomorrow. And that's it for today. Thank you, everybody. And we will share this on our YouTube channel in the next week. So it takes about a week for us to edit it and make it all nice and flashy. So we will make this available in about a week's time. Thank you.